Hello all, welcome to our brand new daily show, The Big Story, where we bring you the top stories of the day right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Rachel, coming to you live from the Straits Times. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, so make sure to like, comment and share with your friends. Also click on the bell to be notified when we're live. I'll have my newsroom colleagues joining me today on the show to talk about the topics of the day. The trade conflict between the United States and China has been escalating, with the US hiking tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. Yesterday, Trade and Industry Minister Chan Chun-sing said that the shifting trade patterns between the United States and China will have the greatest consequences for Singapore's economy. To share more about the US-China trade war, I've here with me foreign editor Jeremy Ouyong. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks, Rachel.
Jeremy, can you briefly share with us what's the impact on the US-China trade war on Singapore's economy?
Okay, so I think Minister Chan actually did sum it up quite well yesterday, and he said that the trade war will affect global businesses, consumer confidence, and it will hurt global investments. So I think if we boil it down for the layman, what we are seeing now is a period of uncertainty, and uncertainty is bad for business. So if you're a business in the US or China, you don't actually know what kind of tariffs you're facing. In the past year, we've gone from 0% to 10%, and in the past 2 weeks, we've gone from 10% to 25%. And if so happen they reach a deal in the next few months, it might go back to 0%. So as a business, how do you make a decision to invest or purchasing? It's very difficult in this when there's uncertainty. So that's why we're not expecting, at least in the short term, businesses to invest, and that's going to hurt global growth.
Okay.
Singapore is a open economy that is exposed to a lot of fluctuations in the global economy. It's exposed to China, it's exposed to the US. So if there is going to be a slowdown in both countries, we are going to feel it in Singapore.
Okay, so you say there'll be a slowdown in Singapore's economy, right? But Japan's Nomura Group predicts that because of this tariff, the manufacturers in China will locate to Southeast Asia. So do you think that will change Singapore's direction in terms of where they're heading to in the economy?
Yeah, so I do think a lot of the problems we see now are going to be short-term problems. Okay. I don't think it's clear yet how this whole thing is going to shake out. And already, just in terms of a deal, you can't tell. 1 minute they are really threatening each other. 1 minute they are saying, oh, it's looking like we are going to get a deal successfully. Today, Donald Trump is saying, oh, it's just a squabble.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell how this will shake out. One view is that this is reorganizing the global supply chain.
Okay.
So China is at the center of the global supply chain, and the tariffs will sort of decouple US and China and move China away from the global supply chain. And as businesses look for new places to manufacture, Southeast Asia is attractive.
Okay.
So in the long term, it may be that it comes down to Southeast Asia becoming a new hub for the manufacturing and the global supply chain. But in the short term, we'll still see a contraction in the US and China, and Southeast Asia will be affected by that.
Okay, so now as you can tell, we'll probably see some instability in terms of the economy. So how can Singaporeans prepare themselves for the coming economic challenges?
So actually, Minister Chan laid out some things that he thought Singapore could do. The first one he said was for Singapore and like-minded countries to continue carrying the message of free trade and to uphold the rules-based free trade order. The second one, and you alluded to that in your first question, was to watch for the shifts. If the trade patterns shift between US and China, then Singapore needs to be prepared to adapt to that. Okay. And we are small enough and nimble enough to do that, I think. The third was to continue to pursue FTAs. Singapore does have free trade agreements with many different countries, and this can help insulate or cushion the blow a little bit of tariffs. And the fourth one was to ensure domestic fundamentals. That means making sure Singapore continues to be a good place for business to be, to have a rules-based, to have law and order, and to have a workforce that is highly skilled.
Okay, Minister Chan also spoke about diversifying portfolios. in the economy as well, right?
Yeah. So that's the fifth one. Yeah. So there are a lot of things I think he laid out that Singapore can do. All are good to do, but I don't think there's anything we can do to actually prevent the short-term impact of the trade war.
Okay. So for more stories on the US-China trade war, do log on to straitstimes.com. Up next, Jakarta is beefing up its security ahead of the presidential election results release. More than 30,000 troops have been deployed to secure the capital city of Jakarta, particularly the election commissions and election supervisory agency buildings. Security agencies believe that local militants plan to bomb mass gatherings and protests after the official count is announced. Still have Jeremy with me in the studio to talk about the terror alert in Jakarta. So Jeremy, why is Indonesia expecting protests after the elections results are announced?
In a nutshell, I guess the problem is that the challenger and the person most likely to lose will not accept defeat. So on April 17, they had an election between the incumbent president Joko Widodo and the challenger Prabowo Subianto, and this was the same two that contested the election 5 years ago. Indonesia takes a while to count. So on election day, we got some projections from pollsters that showed that Joko Widodo would win second term. And but Prabowo has been challenging this result since. So he has been alleging that there has been electoral fraud, and just yesterday he said that he would reject the official vote tally. Like he would not accept it, and they've already held actually protests throughout since April 17th to challenge the result, which they think will eventually show that Joko Widodo wins.
Okay. And we know that security agencies have been saying that the terrorists will attack these protests when it happens. What kind of intelligence have you received about this?
So in Indonesia, they have been, last week they arrested a terror cell that was planning, that they said they was planning attacks when the official results are announced. This was a cell named JAD, the Jamaah Ansharut Daulah, that is loosely linked to ISIS. Today they arrested another 10. So these people had bomb-making devices and some tech that allows them to circumvent the measures that are normally taken to prevent bombings.
Okay. So let's say if these terror attacks are successful, right? What does this mean for the rest of Southeast Asia?
It's hard to say, what it means. We've seen terror attacks in the region before, including in Indonesia, and it hasn't had that much of a spillover effect. Although at the moment there is one unanswered question in the region, and that's to do with the ISIS fighters that went from Southeast Asia to Syria to join the caliphate, and after the caliphate was defeated, they are coming home. We are not sure yet, whether they are home, and if they're coming home, what ISIS capabilities or plans are in Southeast Asia. So an attack might shed some light on that.
Okay. So thank you, Jeremy, for your insight on the US-China trade war and also the terror alert in Jakarta. So next we have Google. Google recently trying to convince its users to be more confident in buying its products. Google CEO SUNDAR PICHAI announced a new operating system update, the Android Q, at the Google I/O Developer Conference on May 7. Let's take a look at the video.
Another way we build for everyone is by ensuring that our products are safe and private, and that people have clear, meaningful choices around their data. We strongly believe that privacy and security are for everyone, not just a few.
The new operating system will feature improved privacy and security features and give mobile phone users more control over their personal data. Google has been facing public backlash on how they've been handling user data privacy. To tell us more about Big Brother and users' data privacy, I have tech editor Irene Tam with me in the studio. Welcome, Irene.
Hi.
So Irene, can you tell us what users can expect from this new update, the Android Q?
The Android Q is slated to be released later this year. It will have a dedicated privacy section where you find a lot of new features. Users can choose to let apps access their location data only when the apps are in use. There will also be another control which allows them to block apps from accessing files in external storage. And there'll be new restrictions to prevent apps from launching in the background, and also from accessing hardware devices, serial numbers. And also another measure that Google is adopting is it will not be collecting data from users and sending them to the cloud to train its AI model. So then the AI model is confined to the phone, just like how Apple does it. The user's data will be locked down on phones, and it will not be sent to the cloud to train AI models. So a couple of improvements. And I think all these, it all comes down to business models. The reason why Apple is able to do this is because it doesn't offer targeted online advertising, different from Google and Facebook. So that's why the approach have been different in the beginning, and now we're seeing Google and Facebook attending more to user privacy issues.
Okay, so we know they're attending to more privacy issues because they've been facing the public backlash on how they've been handling those features, right? Why the backlash, and what has been happening?
Right. It all started early, the intensified scrutiny started early last year, when Facebook reported that it shared as many as 87 million users of its users' data with third-party firms, third-party consultancy company, Cambridge Analytica. And Cambridge Analytica has been using the data to influence people's votes during the 2016 US presidential elections. So that's the first instance. And then early this year, also with the launch of the European GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. So the French government has early this year fined Google 50 million euros for breaching very basic rules, such as not getting consent before collecting users' data, and also not being transparent and clear about how it's handling users' data. So that's how the fine came about. So these are all regulatory pressures, and also users are getting more aware of their privacy and are boycotting and putting pressure on the big tech companies to do more to protect their personal data.
Okay. I mean, you spoke about Android Q's features. There's like the incognito mode, and not sending data to their cloud for the AI, right? Are these features enough? What else can these tech giants do better?
Right. If you look at the requirements of the GDPR, I mean, it's the gold standard for data privacy protection, which a lot of nations take reference from the GDPR model. There's a requirement that gives the consumers the right to ask for their data to be erased. I don't think any of the tech giants, allow consumers to do that. But sooner or later, they might have to, because that's one of the requirements of GDPR. But I think the regulator is giving companies time to adapt, because if you look at the technology that's in place today, I don't think the technology is advanced enough, or maybe it has not been worked into existing systems to allow data to be erased, either in part or in entirety. So that's one thing that GDPR requires. There's another rule that prohibits the processing of sensitive personal data, such as race, religion, political views. And I think some tech firms are guilty of that. I mean, they're not allowed to do that without proper justification. And then another rule requires greater transparency over how the data is shared. Like who else has access to people's personal data, and what do they use it for? So greater clarity can be provided and should be provided to address this requirement in the rule, which will soon catch up with a lot of companies, including big tech companies.
Okay, so more of the regulators and the public demanding transparency, and also to opt in terms of how their data is being shared.
Yes, if not now, it will be soon, yes.
Okay, thank you, Irene, for
All
sharing
right.
your perspective on this matter.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm Rachel. There we have it, and this is our top stories of the day. For more news and videos, head on to straitstimes.com. Join us again, same time tomorrow, for more top stories on the big story.